All right, and welcome back to the forecast card part 2. These are for the 4:30 to midnight games that I do like for tomorrow. Again, keeping the bets on a minimum, given how weird February tends to be. Yeah, if you didn't catch my last video, these are the 6 games that I'm betting in the other slate. American being my favorite game, and yeah, I think I have 7 games that I'm going to be betting in the later slate, so a total of 13 games, 13 bets. So let's get into them. All right, game number 1, we have Presbyterian heading on the road to play Radford. And I really do like Radford in this spot. I think they're just straight up the better team, and they play really well at home. We're looking at these teams just at a top level. Radford is just straight up the significantly better team. Both in record and in rating. They're a borderline top 200 team this year. Meanwhile, Presbyterian's a borderline top 300 team. Bradford's going to get to the line a ton. They're 42nd in free throw attempts per game in all of college basketball, with a much harder schedule than Presbyterian. They're going to shoot a lot of threes. And this is against a really bad Presbyterian three-point defense. They're going to get a lot of offensive boards. And on the other side, Presbyterian, they're really not very good offensively either. They might find a little bit of success on the offensive glass and also shoot some threes, but Radford on paper is just a way, way better team. Plus, if you look at their home rating, Radford is much better at home. They have a top 70 home advantage in college basketball. Meanwhile, Presbyterian, when they're not at home, they are borderline a top 300 team. They play much, much worse on the road. And if you look at their last 5 games, Bradford's been a borderline top 100 team. Meanwhile, Presbyterian's kind of been floating around that top 200, top 250 pretty much all year. So I think we're getting the better team here. You could argue that the reason this line isn't too bigger is because it's a revenge game for Presbyterian. But I don't particularly care about that in this position. They beat Presbyterian by 13 on Presbyterian's home court. They're playing their second home game after dominating UNC Asheville in their last game. They will have one fewer day rest than Presbyterian, but Presbyterian is going to have to be traveling 200 miles. And the last times they've had to travel about 200 miles, they lost all 4 of those games. 3 of which they've lost by more than the spread. So I think we're getting the better team here at the better price. And typically, I don't think revenge factors in as much when the team is on the road. So give me Radford here in the 4:30 p.m. game to beat Presbyterian by more than 5.5. All right, game number 2. As always, I always have to make a bet in the worst game. The worst game on the slate. Here we have Prairie A&M versus Arkansas Pine Bluff. These are 2 teams in the bottom 10 in college basketball. But I do genuinely think Prairie View is just better than Arkansas Pine Bluff by I feel like they're more of a real team. And the main reason why I say that is because Arkansas Pine Bluff lost to, in my opinion, the worst team in college basketball, which is Mississippi Valley State. They were at home and they lost to Mississippi Valley State by 3, which is just insane. At least Prairie View was kind of close, but at least Prairie View beat them by 9. And these 2 teams have already played. And Arkansas Pine Bluff did lose that game as well by 9. And again, we're getting Prairie View at home. I don't think revenge typically exists in these leagues. They're kind of just kids playing ball. But Prairie View at least has some legitimate wins under their belt. I think they're just the better team here. And theoretically, it's not a significant improvement. But, Arkansas Pine Bluff on the road, they're 5-11. They cover a lot more at home. Obviously, they're traveling here. And Arkansas, Prairie View A&M, they, not by much, but they have a decent home advantage. They basically improve 3 ranking points. Meanwhile, Arkansas Pine Bluff is just always bad. I don't really know what to say about this game. I just think Prairie View wins this game by 7 points at home. Both these teams are atrocious, but I think Prairie View is just a little bit less bad. Yeah, we're getting them back home after a couple home road losses. Arkansas Pine Bluff is heading off on the road. Yeah, give me Prairie View A&M here, -5.5. All right, game number 3. We have Kentucky heading on the road to play Alabama. Now, I fully understand why people would want to play Alabama here, and it is very possible because these two teams are so fast-paced that anything could truly happen. The over moved a little bit too high for me at like 181. Maybe if I bet it earlier at like at the opening line, I would like it, but I think it's around where it should be now. But I think this number's too big at 10.5. Kentucky plays really hard on the road, especially against elite teams, and they have a decent matchup here. Look at where Kentucky likes to score. They're a team that shoots basically everything. They don't really have a particular shot they love to take. I think they're going to find success from 3. They're going to find some success on the offensive glass, and they're definitely going to get to the line a lot. An Alabama team that, because of how fast they play, they do foul a decent chunk amount. So I think Kentucky's going to get quite a few free throws this game, probably like 20-ish, just because of how fast these teams are going to get like 70 possessions, 80 possessions a game. On the other side, Alabama, obviously they're going to find success. They're a pretty good offensive team, but I don't know if they're that much better than Kentucky. You look at where they typically like to shoot. Their biggest advantage is in the mid-range. It's a shot they don't take. Take a lot of threes. Kentucky's the 6th best three-point defense in college basketball. They're probably going to get most of their points in the paint, which will probably be the bigger problem. But Kentucky defends their own glass really well. They're the top 14 in limiting offensive opportunities, and that's where kind of Alabama really relies on getting most of their points. They're the 12th best in converting second chance opportunities. I just think this line's a little bit too hefty. Obviously, Kentucky plays much worse on the road than they do at home. But if you look at how these teams step up to competition, Kentucky, the certain class of rating that they play the best against is these top 25 teams like Alabama. They really show up when it matters. Alabama, on the other hand, they kind of play all teams except for dog shit teams about evenly as around a top 10 team. So yes, we're getting Alabama off of 2 losses, and I understand that typically when they do lose, they put up a shit ton of points, but it's kind of an awkward sandwich where they're on the road, went home, then they went on the road, then they're back home. I just think the travel advantage is not as strong as it might be. And yeah, I don't know. I think Kentucky has the ability to show up here. Obviously, Kentucky is most likely going to be missing Lamont Butler, which could be a little problematic. Creasure might be out. Not really a big deal. Who cares? And Jackson Robinson, but we'll see. I think they have a deep enough team here that they can find some success. So give me Kentucky at +10.5. All right, heading on to game number 4. This is a weird game because obviously Akron is the better team. They've been playing insanely well lately. I think they're on a 1, 2, 3, 4, like a 14-game win streak. But I feel like this line, because it's not bigger, is kind of telling us that we should be betting on Ohio. Like obviously Akron crushed Ohio by I think like 11 points in their last matchup. But it's 12 points. But in my opinion, Ohio is such a better team at home, and Akron was at home in that game, that 12 points is not that bad of a loss for an Ohio team that typically shows up much better at home. We're getting Akron off of a really weird sandwich spot where they were at home, and they went on the road, went home, now they're going back on the road. Usually a spot where a team is kind of disoriented. Yes, they've lost the last few games, but this is a good revenge spot for Ohio. I'm not exactly sure what the connection is, but I know there, if I'm not mistaken, some kind of coach overlap between something with these two teams. So I do think Ohio has the edge there, and I just think we're getting them here in a revenge spot where at home where they play better. The line, in my opinion, should be much thicker if the game is telling us to bet Akron. Yeah, Akron's been playing Sure, they're winning games, but they're playing a little bit worse than they usually do. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, give me Ohio here, plus 2.5. I think they win this game outright, but give me the points. All right, now moving on to my favorite game of the later slate, which is Elon playing William and Mary. Now, Elon, on paper, is a team that's due for a lot of regression. But as I said, statistically, regression hits a little bit. It's less likely to hit when you're at home and when you're playing well. It's typically once you're like in the middle of a slump or you're traveling where it kind of hits. But here we're getting Elon in a spot where they are going to be playing in a revenge spot against William and Mary. Now, William and Mary is a significantly worse team on the road. They drop almost over 125 ranking points in predictive rating, and that is not ideal, and especially in a revenge game when you're heading onto a court. Elon plays a little bit worse at home, but not nearly as significant. And now, if you look at these two teams on paper, we're getting Elon off of two decent wins against borderline top 100 teams in UNC Wilmington and Towson. William Mary also off of 2 wins against Drexel and Hofstra. Both these teams are playing well, but sometimes people say that a big rest advantage is helpful. I don't typically disagree most of the time, but Elon is 3-0 against the spread with a rest disadvantage, and we're getting them here on 1 day's rest after they played Towson at home. But William Mary hasn't played since the 15th, so they've had over a week to plan for this game. I'm not particularly concerned because I do believe that the game after that against Wilmington is going to be a bigger game for them. But this is a true travel spot for them. They're going to be traveling over 150 miles, and the last 4 times they've had to travel over 150 miles, they've lost the game by a good chunk. They lost to NC State by 23, Drexel by 20, Campbell by 41, Delaware by 20. Like, they get blown out when they leave their home court. And you can kind of see that trend when you look at their games. Like, starting it from January 20th, L on the road, 2 home wins, L on the road, home win, 2 L's on the road, 2 home wins. Like, this is a team that, without their home crowd, they play terribly. And Elon, it's kind of hit or miss. They win some, lose some at home versus on the road. When these two teams did play, I believe that was early January 9th. William and Mary did win that game like pretty decisively. They won that game by 13. And that was kind of in the middle of Elon's kind of hot streak. And it kind of looks very similar this time around. But I think this time, because we're getting them at home, where William and Mary just seems to regress, like big time. I really love this spot for Elon. If you look at their shooting stats matchup, Elon is just straight up the better team. They're about equally offensively, but defensively, Elon is a few echelons better. They've been a better team all year, and they play really good at, not really good at home, but the difference in change of rating between their home versus away rate is obviously much more weighted towards Elon. And when you look at just where William Mary likes to shoot, what do? They shoot up threes. That's basically all they do. And they also like to shoot in the paint. That makes up 90% of their shots. Now, what does Elon defend well? They're really good three-point defense. They're top 75 in college basketball. Obviously, that's not weighted to their schedule of strength, but they played a harder schedule than William and Mary has. And they're the 77th best in near basket percentage. So I think, the fact that their biggest weakness is mid-range, a shot that William and Mary never takes. Sure, William and Mary is probably going to find some success in forcing turnovers because Elon's biggest problem is that they turn the ball over a shit ton. That's kind of what keeps them from being an elite team, in my opinion. But on the other side, Elon, what do they like to do? They shoot pretty much everything pretty much equally. They shoot a lot of threes. They don't shoot the three well, but they're going to have a huge advantage on the offensive glass. They're ranked 40th in college basketball. William Mary's barely top 200. They're going to get a shit ton of free throws. They're a good free throw shooting team. They're a top 100 free throw shooting team. And they're going to find some success from 3. Obviously, they're not a great 3-point shooting team, but William and Mary isn't even a top 200 Like they're a really bad defensive team. That's kind of where they struggle. So we're getting a revenge spot at home. Where William Mary plays terribly on the road, and I think their first matchup was just an anomaly, and the true numbers will come out in this game. So give me Elon here. It's gonna be a 1-unit play for me. Elon at home -3.5. All right, and those are my 5 favorite games. There are 2 more that I've officially bet, so these 7 will be in the recap tomorrow. These leans will not be, unless I do end up betting them, but as I said, I'm going to keep my YouTube and Discord separate, so you will never see Discord-only plays in my recaps on YouTube. But we got San Diego State here. These 2 teams already played, and it was an extremely close game where Utah State won by 1. So I really love these kind of angles where you're getting a revenge spot where the team would have already covered in that revenge spot. So like San Diego +6 would have covered where they had already lost by 1. So I think they can keep this game close again with that revenge in mind. They played a much harder schedule than Utah State. Obviously, Utah State has the much better offense, but San Diego State has the much better defense. On paper, what does Utah State like to do? They're a team that shoots a lot in the paint, but that's where San Diego State defends really well. They're a top 25 near paint defense team. They're a top 16 3-point defense. They don't give up really that many offensive boards or that many turnovers. Utah State probably will still find some success, but really not that much. San Diego State's one of their bigger problems is that they do foul a lot defensively. And sure, Utah State gets a lot of free throws, but they're not a good free throw shooting team. They're barely shooting 70% on the year, so I'm not too concerned about that. And on the other side, San Diego State, again, not a great offensive team, but they're going to have arguably more success on the offensive glass and turnovers than Utah State will. And yeah, they probably won't get to the line nearly as much, but they have a pretty big advantage against a really bad Utah State defense that doesn't defend anything in the top 100. So, yeah, I think San Diego State could have a chance to win this game outright. Utah State is coming off a bit of a, I'm not going to say a hangover, but they've been playing, in my opinion, a little bit over their heads. They just, crushed the San Jose State team by like 52 points. And typically when you have massive wins like that, you kind of come up dry the next day. San Diego State's a bit more consistent. They've won 7 of their last 8, and they've been pretty like close, tight wins, but still wins. They keep games close. It's kind of what they do. Yeah, I like this spot. Obviously, the bigger concern here is that it's a pretty big travel spot for San Diego State, but I think because of the revenge angle, I'm really not that concerned. So San Diego State is my 6th favorite, and UNLV, I don't think this Colorado State team is nearly as scary when they're on the road versus at home. At home, they're kind of another beast, but UNLV plays really, really well at home. And on paper, defensively, these teams are basically identical. Obviously, Colorado State is a slightly better offense, but they're a team that shoots a bunch of threes, and that is the spot that UNLV defends the best. And Colorado State doesn't really do anything else that great, if I'm being honest. They don't get a lot of turnovers. They don't get points off steals. They don't shoot free throws. On the other side, UNLV, they're going to have a lot of success in the paint where they take the most of their shots. They'll probably have some success getting turnovers. And they're also going to have some success shooting threes. The only thing that, Colorado State defends really well is the mid-range shot. And UNLV does take a decent amount. 28% of their shots are mid-range, but they don't have to take mid-range shots, especially at home, where I think they just are going to play even closer to the basket. So, yeah, I don't really have too many opinions on this game. It's going to be a really late one, and I kind of wanted a late game to look forward to. But I think these teams are closer than they appear when they're in these different environments. Obviously, Colorado State crushed them by 22 when they played in early January, but UNLV has been playing much better as of late. Obviously, they played some bad teams here to get themselves a win streak. But I do think momentum carries. And this UNLV team isn't bad. Like, they have wins over San Diego State, Utah State. San Jose State. Obviously, they have some bad losses to Boise, Nevada, Utah State in a revenge spot. But yeah, I think with this momentum, they're going to be coming home. Colorado State's going to be heading on the road here from altitude, traveling over 600 miles. I like this spot a lot for UNLV at home, catching 3 points. So yeah, these other 3 games, they're all games the model liked, but I'm not going to touch for either regression reasons or these teams have screwed me in the past. Obviously, Texas Southern is playing Mississippi Valley State, and I think every new model always picks the team against Mississippi Valley State. That's kind of why it's up here. But this Texas Southern team lost outright to Arkansas Pine Bluff, and because of that, I cannot trust them ever. Omaha, I might still bet this one, but I bet them in the past, and they came up really, really short. So kind of scared that I like them again because typically history repeats itself. And Bethune-Cookman, the line just a little stinky. I think they're way better of a team. Only catching 2.5 typically means I'm missing something. Those are all the games that I like for Saturday. And hopefully we have a solid day. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up posting this video like right now at 7 a.m. EST or if I'm going to schedule it. I guess you'll find that out. But until then, I will see you guys around in the Discord if you're there. If not, I will talk to you guys on Sunday. Later.